Hello and welcome back to the Spontaneous Brilliance Podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Kavanaugh, and I'm going to chat with you today about accepting. But first, I'm going to just recap super quickly all the concepts of spontaneous brilliance. I won't do this every time, but I'm just going to do this really fast recap in case this is your first time here, or in case we've forgotten a few things, which, that's possible. Number one, there is no shortage of brilliance on this planet, just a reluctance to offer it and a resistance to accepting it. We are here in Spontaneous Brilliance at the intersection of creative imagination, personal responsibility, and inspired action. We know that life is a 24/7 improvisation, which requires offering and accepting and blocking. No, it requires offering and accepting. We don't want blocking. Okay, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay. Also, nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us because the universe never blocks. And we are 100% responsible for our choices, our thoughts, our beliefs, our responses, our actions. In acting as in life, obstacles are what make it all worth doing. It's about making the other player look good, and it's about finding the love. So we're going to talk today about accepting. And I love the quote by Joseph Campbell that says, "The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are." That is the most awesome quote. I think about it and repeat it to myself often, because I think we tend to be looking for what it is that makes our life better, or who it is that's going to make our life better, or what we're going to find or discover or grow into that's going to make our life better. And the reality is, we were born with everything we need. We did this on purpose, right? In alignment with our sacred purpose. We got here. And so the privilege of this lifetime is to authentically show up as exactly who we are. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, which means we are the player playing the character here. This person that we perceive as ourselves here on the planet is the character that our soul is playing. And so, as we know, every technique or truism that makes for a successful performance on the stage does the same thing when applied to the great stage of life. And the great guru of improvisation, Keith Johnstone, said, "Good improvisers seem telepathic. Everything looks prearranged. This is because they accept all offers made." Now, we've talked about before that your partner in the improv is the other guy, that acting is about making the other guy look good. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes your partner in an improv, in the 24/7 improv on the great stage of life, is you. What if you're the other person in your improv? Because everything is about relationships. Everything on the stage is about relationships. And there are only 7 kinds of relationships in the world. There's your relationship with yourself. There's your relationship with another human being. There's your relationship with animals, your relationship with nature, your relationship with objects, and your relationship with the universe. Your partner in the improv, whoever that is, yourself or the universe or the animals or the objects or whatever, is offering. And you are there to receive it. That is you accepting. You're receiving it. You're acknowledging it as a thing. And we want to get good as human beings at not blocking. We block ourselves, or we block other situations. We just block based on our presets, okay? And our presets basically develop, they're tripwires. There are past experiences and our observations and what they mutate into. So our presets become preconceptions, expectations, judgments, and limiting beliefs. A preconception is like this is going to be hard. And it's based on the past. You're kind of pre-blocking. This is going to be hard. An expectation is there's no point. So why even try, right? I expect it to go crappy. There's judgments. I am a failure. That you've decided this is just what I am. And by the way, just a little segue here because I just heard myself say I am a failure. Anytime you use the phrase I am, anytime you say I am X, you are using the God phrase. Because what did God say in the Bible? I am that I am, right? So anytime you say I am X, Y, or Z, just know that you're pulling a whole bunch of energy into your being, saying that's what it is. So try to focus those on positive things. Okay, that was a little station identification moment. We're going to go back to the main point. So judgments like I am a failure. And then the fourth one is limiting beliefs. Some people just aren't meant to win. That's an example of a limiting belief. And it all goes back to that idea, like the Henry Ford quote of whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That's the quote from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Hello. Okay? So what do you think about your ability to live your life as a conscious creator, living your purpose that you can feel bubbling around inside you? What do you feel about your ability to accept everything that comes into your life as a gift? If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Okay? Our presets are funny things. They tend to make us planners. They tend to get us attached to the outcome, right? We've decided it's going to go well. We've decided it's going to go badly. We've decided we are right for this. It's right for us. We kind of plan for things, worst case scenarios. But even if we're planning for the best case scenario, if we're a planner, we have to remember that you can't plan an improv. By definition, you can't plan an improv. And life is a 24/7 improv. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a direction that improv is going. It doesn't mean that you cannot know which way you're headed and have those coordinates in the GPS of your life or in the GPS of your improv. But what it does mean is that if you are attached to the outcome, if you have planned and you have only allowed for one potential outcome, instead of planning what you're going to try and seeing how it works out, if you plan that you are going to get this come hell or high water and there are no other options, there's only failure, then your presets are making you a habitual blocker. When you plan, you're setting yourself up to block. Our expectation of what we wanted or thought we wanted the offer to be is what makes us think of it as good or bad. It's what we think we want offered back to us in a situation, what we want the universe to give us, and our expectation of how we want that to show up. That's what makes us think it's either good or bad. And that's what makes us block it if it comes in a form we don't expect. By the way, that's what makes us block the genius of people that we perceive to have a disability or people that we perceive to not be good at something, or when we perceive ourselves to not be good at something, that makes us block the possibility of our genius showing up. So we are accepting, we're practicing accepting here, okay? Because remember, it's our expectation, it's what we think about it that makes it either good or bad. And back to my favorite guy, Shakespeare, in Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2, he says, "For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Yeah, baby. That's it. That's the whole point. The simple truth is that if we can learn to embrace the cycle of accepting every offer and then offering back something that will build upon that offer that we received, then we will be in a constant state of ease and grace. Wouldn't we all like to be in a constant state of ease and grace? Let me say that again. If we can learn to embrace the cycle of accepting every offer and then offering back something that will build upon the offer we received, we'll be in a constant state of ease and grace. Accepting puts us into ease and grace. It's that simple. I did not say it was easy. I said it was simple. And one of the ways in which that idea of it being easy is not what I mean, is a phrase that has annoyed the stuffing out of me for most of my adult life, which is a phrase that everybody loves to say for some reason. It's all good. It's all good. Something goes wrong and somebody goes, it's all good. No, it's not. I mean, I find that annoying at best, okay? Because not everything is good in the sense that I don't have to pretend that I am enjoying myself when I'm in great pain to know that it's right. It doesn't have to be good to be perfect. It's a perfect gift. It is a perfect opportunity. It is the perfect thing for us to learn from. That doesn't mean that it's good. That's a little semantics run around for me. Like, for instance, tell you a quick story here. I hope I'll make it quick. So several years ago, I was leaving a business at night, and I walked out into a gravel parking lot with those concrete things that you park the car up against. And they were off center from where the cars were parked. So the parking spaces were on one grid, but those little concrete things on the ground had been placed there before they'd repainted the parking spaces in a different order to make them have more parking spaces, I think. But so these concrete things were actually between the cars. And I'm going through this parking lot in the dark at night, and I go between these two big monster trucks and tripped over one of those concrete thingies. And as I went down, I thought, I'm going to be invisible here in the dark between these two trucks. But as I hit the ground, I thought two things very quickly in succession. I thought first, I just broke my shoulder. And the second thing I thought was, okay, what's the gift in this? Now, I had no idea what the gift was. And I really couldn't see one for several days. And as my friends and family will attest, it was a series of just like clusters. I mean, I went to the emergency room. They told me that the ball on top of my shoulder was completely off. I was going to have surgery. Went home, could not take any of the pain meds. They gave me hives. So I was just awake and sitting up all the time. And I decided to start envisioning that they were wrong, that it was not completely off. That ball on the end of my shoulder was not completely off. And so I would not need surgery. I didn't want surgery. I was not going to have surgery. I went to an orthopedic surgeon who was a friend of the family, and he looked at the x-rays and he's like, I don't know why they told you it was completely off. It's not completely off. I was like, bingo, check one, right? And then he said, okay, you don't have to have surgery if it doesn't fall off in the next 2 weeks. If it does topple off, because it looked like an ice cream cone with the top sort of slid off to one side, right? And he said, if it doesn't fall off in 2 weeks, you're good. And so I couldn't, as I said, take the pain meds, couldn't lay down. So I would sit in the lotus position with Reiki healing music playing on my bed and just try to zone, right, for hours and hours and hours every day. And I envisioned it moving back on. I would spend hours meditating on it moving back on, not moving farther off or not staying where it was, but moving back on. By the time 10 days later that I went back in for another x-ray, he was like, what have you been doing? And I told him, and he's like, well, then keep doing that. When my partner looked at the x-ray, he went, are you sure these are her x-rays? Because it had moved back on. It had moved back, not all the way. It was still off center, but it had moved back a visible distance, right? And so for me, in that weird story, I was in a lot of pain, and I could have looked at it from that perspective. But what I learned is unequivocally, I could heal myself. Hell, whoa. I was 50 something at the time. I would never have really bought into that. I'd seen other people spontaneously heal that I thought were just profound, remarkable spiritual people. And when they did it, I was like, wow. But it never occurred to me. Don't ask me why, right? I'm the author of Spontaneous Brilliance. This is my thing, that everybody is brilliant. Yeah. But hello, never occurred to me that I could heal myself from something that the medical community was saying, yeah. I was also told I was never going to be able to raise my arm above shoulder height. I would never be able to do that. By 3 weeks later, my shoulder was completely up over my head, and then I was just as flexible in yoga class as ever and completely can touch the opposite side behind my back. I mean, I look like a Gumby doll, and I can do that with my shoulder, but I was told I would never be able to do that. So again, it's about, what do you believe? And that was not good. that was not good, but it was perfect in what it taught me. And so in the early 20th century, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful improv teacher named Viola Spolin created a game called Yes and. Yes and is a game to teach offering and accepting. It's actually a game to teach accepting and then offering. You are saying yes to whatever the offer is. You're saying, yes, my shoulder's broken, and I know this is a gift. And then when they tell you that it has to have surgery, you say yes. And in the sense of saying, yes, I hear you. I acknowledge that's what you're saying, and I'm going to change that reality. So yes, and you're accepting what you're getting, and you are taking responsibility for your response. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. If I had listened to the first people, or even bought into the idea that I was never going to be able to raise my arm above my shoulder, my outcome would be very different. My response was, yes, and I'm going to do this. So embracing the cycle of offering, accepting, if we can embrace that cycle, that's where we get that joy from, right? That's where we get into that ease and grace. It's embracing the cycle of giving and receiving. But we can take it even one step beyond that, because here's my favorite version of the game. When you get a gift, what are you supposed to say? What does your mom or your dad, when you're very little, teach you to say? When somebody hands you a gift, you say thank you, right? So if you're really accepting, then in life, you're saying yes, thank you, and if you can make that step, there's where the ease and grace lies. When you're saying, yes, I acknowledge this as an offer into my life. Thank you for this gift, even though I don't know what it is yet. I don't understand it as a gift yet. Who cares, right? It's yes, thank you, and now I'm going to offer back this because I'm going to build on that gift I was just given. Not the offer, because we can block an offer, right? But we're going to say thank you to every gift. We are not going to block. Okay, we're talking about accepting, and I want to acknowledge the fact that accepting can sometimes be misunderstood. I loved one time I had a client who I was talking about offering, accepting, and blocking, and she was like, I can't handle that word accepting. How can I have to accept everything? How do I have to accept everything? I don't want to accept everything. I don't agree with that. And she was talking about not agreeing with the thing that she was supposed to accept. So let me be super duper clear. Accepting does not mean that you are agreeing with the offer. Accepting does not mean you are surrendering to somebody else's will over you. Accepting means that you notice the offers of others. You are consciously accepting offers, whether they are made consciously or unconsciously. You accept them into the moment and you build on them. You take the responsibility to build on that offer. You say yes, and I see you, I hear you, and here you go. Accepting puts you in the responsible position, the response-able position. Now you have the ability to respond in the way that is most constructive for everybody concerned. It's massively empowering. When you bump up against something that is a challenge or somebody that is a challenge, it can often seem like, how is it possible that my soul wanted this or intended this or that I invited this into my life or that this is a gift, however you want to look at it, or that the universe isn't doing something awful to me by giving me this offer. Dr. Sue Morter, she wrote The Energy Codes. She's a wonderful, wonderful teacher. You can find lots of videos of her out there in the world, and I recommend that you do and that you learn central channel breathing. It's really cool. But Dr. Sue would say, what's your bus stop conversation? When you're faced with a circumstance that just sucks, or a person in your life that is just too hard to deal with, Dr. Sue would say, what was your bus stop conversation? And what she means is when you are on the astral plane, right, getting ready to come down to earth, you're going to incarnate and you come down to earth. And you go to the bus stop all excited, and there are the other souls at the bus stop, and they're all waiting to come to earth. And you go, you guys, I'm so excited. I'm going to go to earth, and I get to learn forgiveness, and I get to learn overcoming, and I get to learn strength of character, and I get to learn to be empowered in the face of adversity. And oh, by the way, in order to do that, I need somebody to be really, really awful to me so that I can forgive them. And I need somebody to do this horrible thing to me and challenge me so that I can do this. And I need somebody to be this in my life so that I can learn this. So she's saying, Dr. Sue is saying, when you're at that bus stop, when you're imagining your bus stop conversation with this person, what was it that you were wanting them to do for you so that you had an opportunity to learn? And the Dalai Lama puts it this way. I once directed a program for 8,000 kids in an interactive conversation with the Dalai Lama. Yeah, I'm all about interactivity. So I'm really serious when I say email in and get on this podcast with me. So the Dalai Lama was in this interactive conversation with people in Sun Valley, Idaho, with these kids. And this one young guy said, so how is it that you can have compassion? Because the whole conversation was around compassion. He said, how can you have compassion for people that have thrown you out of your country, that kill your countrymen, that would kill you if they could get their hands on you? How do you have compassion for those people that wish you ill, wish you dead? And the Dalai Lama said, it's easy to love someone that's easy to love. It is easy to love someone who is in alignment with your way of thinking. But then he said, when you find that person in your life whose behavior, whose way of thinking, whose whole take on the world is so egregiously contradictory to yours, their behavior is so painful that your heart has to grow in order to be able to accept them and feel compassion toward them. That is your sacred friend. So I'm going to say to you, the next time that you see somebody in front of you that is seeming like they are just one big, giant, massive blocking, that they are making it impossible for you to feel like they are a gift in your life, that it is impossible for you to believe that there is some reason why this is a positive, I almost said good. Okay. So if there is some reason why this is a good thing in your life, that this is a gift, that's the word I was looking for, that this is a gift in your life. Remember that they are your sacred friend. What is the gift? What is the lesson? They are giving you an opportunity to experience. When you know what that is, or when you believe what that is, then that's when you let your imagination, which is your bridge to your soul, you let your imagination build on that. build on that gift and imagine how you can grow from it. And you will. Imagine the beauty that you want to come out of this. Just like I imagined being able to move my shoulder back into place, or move my hand above my head, or back behind my head, which I can do with incredible ease right now. I can function like a Gumby doll, like I said, with that shoulder. That's not supposed to be possible. But remember what William Arthur Ward said. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can become it. And I'm going to add to that. If you can accept it as a gift, be grateful for it, imagine how you can offer back into that gift in the most glorious way possible, and then do it, then you can become anything. In this field of infinite possibilities, we are only limited by our belief. So, once again, we're at the end of this podcast episode, so I'm just going to remind you once again, when in doubt, offer. If in doubt, you are probably blocking. Thanks again for joining me. I want to remind you to please email podcast@spontaneousbrilliance.com with ideas for what you would like to hear, ideas for what you would like to talk about, requests for coming on the podcast. I am happy to have you. If there's a bunch of you that all want to talk about the same thing, we'll have a big group Zoom thingy and talk about it together as a cluster. But let's talk about it. The world needs you offering like crazy. Don't sit on the couch eating Cheetos, watching somebody else play the lead in their life. Don't let them play the lead in your life. You are not boring background for somebody else's accomplishments. You are the lead in your life. Take center stage. Offer and accept your ass off. Okay? All right. Have a brilliant, beautiful, wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time.